Good evening, and welcome to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. This evening, we'll be hearing from the candidates running for the office of Mayor of the City of Fort Collins. I'm Jory Kramer, and I'll serve as your moderator this evening. This forum is being live streamed, broadcasted, and recorded by the wonderful folks at FCTV. The recording will be available later at the League's website, lwv-larimercounty.org, and also at vote411.org. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages our members to be active in local government. The League does not endorse political parties nor candidates. 7 candidates are running for mayor, and we are fortunate to have 6 of them with us this evening. The 7th was invited, but has not come yet, so we'll see. They are in order of appearance on the ballot, starting on my left: Tricia Canonico, Adam Eggleston, Emily Francis, Adam Hirschhorn, Shirley Peel, and Scott Van Tattenhove, also known as Scotty V. During the forum, candidates will have 90 seconds to give an introductory statement. Each candidate will then answer a series of questions and will have 60 seconds for their answers. Then the candidates will give a 60-second closing statement. Candidates, we ask you to adhere to the time limits. To help you do that, you've already met our wonderful Tom LaPointe, and he is our timer for the evening. So again, he will hold up a yellow sign to indicate when you have 15 seconds left, and then a red stop sign to indicate that your time is up. Thank you so much to our audience for joining us in person here in the City Council chambers. And thank you also to our audience who's joining us on the other side of the screen. For our in-person audience, in order to allow the maximum amount of time for questions, we ask that you do not express support or dislike for an answer or a candidate. Please hold your applause until the very end of the forum. The candidates have not seen the questions they will be asked this evening. Our in-person audience has the opportunity to submit questions. You were given a index card when you came in, so please write your questions on the card, 1 question per card. Hold it up, and one of our League volunteers will collect the card and bring it to our question sorters here at the front of the room. We most likely will not have time for all of the questions this evening, but the candidates have agreed to stay after for a meet and greet, so you can ask them your questions then. All right, folks, well, it's time to begin. And Tricia, I already clued you in that you'll be beginning, but we are going to start with our 90-second opening statements, and we'll turn the floor over to Tricia.
Hi, everyone. I am Tricia Canonico. Thank you to the League, and thank you to all of you for being here this evening. I've been in Fort Collins since 2010. Coming here was my 24th move. My husband and I feel so privileged that we've been able to raise our 3 kids in this incredible city. Since getting here, I've been really involved with volunteering, serving on the boards of nonprofit, and stepping up whenever I see a need in the community. In 2021, I was honored to be elected to serve District 3 on City Council. And my leadership style is really about listening to my constituents, collaborating with partners throughout our region, and doing all I can to move forward the goals of our community. As part of my leadership, I really look for opportunities to serve and give Fort Collins a voice at the table. So I currently am Vice President of Colorado Communities for Climate Action. I serve on the Front Range Passenger Rail District Board. And under the Biden administration, I was appointed to the EPA's Local Government Advisory Board. I'm honored to have the endorsement of Congressman Joe Neguse, former Congresswoman Betsy Markey, and leaders from across the region and across the state. I was also humbled to just recently be named one of BizWest's Women of Distinction for 2025 in the government sector. And thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Thank you, Tricia. Adam Eggleston.
Thank you, Jory. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. My name's Adam Eggleston. I'm a lifelong resident of Fort Collins, moved here in 1993, graduate of Fort Collins High School and a graduate of CSU with a master's in business administration. Over my career, I've spent a lot of it as a realtor and as a community engager. I've served on a number of boards and commissions, about 15 so far, working everything from the land use code and the nuanced approach of that, helping change we got at the state, the U+2 or occupancy limits, and also working on several different policy when it comes to housing, parking, and budgeting. So I bring an approach that I enjoy meetings and the nuance and the policy more than anything else. And so I hope to bring my knowledge of 15 years of being policy engaged and learning about the nuance of different programs to help the city kind of balance this budget moving forward and set us up for a better, healthier economy and city moving forward that is less reliant on outside entities and more self-sufficient, so our community can continue to grow and thrive like it has for the majority of my life. So thank you so much, and that's it.
Thanks, Adam. Emily?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the League for hosting tonight. And thank you for everyone for coming here tonight and those that are watching remotely or later in the broadcast. My name's Emily. I was born and raised here in Fort Collins. I went to Laurel Lesher and Fort Collins High School. There are actually 3 Lampkins up here tonight. So we're a very fortunate community to have a lot of homegrown leadership. I was elected in City Council to represent District 6 in 2019 and again in 2023. And I also serve as the Mayor Pro Tem, and I was elected by Council in 2021 and 2023. So as Mayor Pro Tem, I've served alongside our Mayor and attend most every leadership meeting with the Mayor and fill in when she is out of town. So I've done the job of Mayor and have really stepped into the role before, so I feel like I am ready to serve in that capacity. I've also been the leading expert on council in the number one issue facing Fort Collins for the past at least 6 years, which is affordable housing. And I've also led on issues such as safe streets, transit, climate, and supporting small businesses. And as Fort Collins continues to face challenges such as water and air quality and growing and maintaining our community character, I feel like I have the experience and proven leadership to be able to step into the role and serve as the next mayor. So thank you all tonight for being here.
Thanks, Emily. Adam Hirschhorn.
Always a pleasure, Jory. My name's Adam Hirschhorn. I am a 14-year Wikipedia editor. I've been involved with causes such as Black Lives Matter and Take Back the Night. Right now, we're confronted by blowback from the Holocaust in Gaza, a climate catastrophe, and the rise of full-blown fascism. Someone will have to save your bacon. I don't hear a lot of plans about what to do about the 3 elephants in the room from the other candidates. That's definitely why I'm running. I think when it comes to Washington, we are going to have to play it real strategically. I agree with Eccleston that there's going to come a time when we're forced to deal with our economic situation on our own. Not yet. We still have until midterms to take advantage of everything the federal government has to offer, and that's going to be the main part of my agenda as mayor. We're going to build healthy relationships, and that means we don't do false equivalences between the abuser and the abused. And we're going to stand up for women's rights. We're going to protect trans youth. We are going to be real solid. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Shirley?
Thanks, Jory, and thanks for having me here tonight. My name is Shirley Peel, and I'm not going to tell you a lot about myself tonight because you can go to my website and read about basically what I've been doing for the last 25 years of my life. I want to talk to you about health. About 5 years ago, I had some health problems, and I've spent the last 5 years working on my health and getting into a really good place. And so that brings to mind that just like I want to be healthy, I want our city to be healthy. And there's 5 key indicators of a healthy city. That is responsible spending and a strong economy, safe and secure neighborhoods, affordable living for working families, sensible and sustainable growth, and efficient government and engaged citizens. And so that anything I do as mayor will be, I will look at it through those 5 lenses. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Scott?
Hi, my name is Scotty V. This is my 3rd time running for mayor. And I would like to say to the League of Women Voters, thank you so much for everything you do for these elections. However, I really would wish that you would change the format. If you are a voter and you're deciding on 60-second sound bites or 90-second sound bites, do not base your votes on that. I have been an educator of social studies for 25 years. This is a terrible way to decide your vote. I will not get my message across to you. I will not be able to send anything except for a canned response. My whole platform is to bring critical thinking to the city of Fort Collins as the seat of mayor. Not to do sound bites, not to do what I know people want to hear, and definitely not rehearsed. If you want to know about me, I strongly suggest you read Rebecca Powell's article that is coming out in the Colorado, and we spent 2 hours talking. And also Loco Foco, Kurt Bear, put us on a podcast. Again, an hour and a half of discussion. And I just saw my 15 seconds. Just to let you know, I will stop instantly when I see that red sign and not try to wrap up a sentence in a nice little easy way, because that's not how Fort.
Thank you, Scott. All right. We are going to move into the question section now of the forum. And Scott, this one's going to come to you first, and it's a big one. I'll just warn you in advance. What do you see as the most urgent challenge facing our community in the coming years, and what specific steps would you take to address it?
60 seconds. Go. Solve all of Fort Collins' problems. No. We are in an identity crisis. Who do we want to be? Who are we? It's existential. The Hughes is deeper than just that land. That is existential of who we are in Fort Collins. I have no idea, but I know where we were 20 years ago when I was running, 40 years ago when I was just a kid here. We have changed many times. I have no idea where we're going to be, but I'm really good at listening to you. I'm really good at hearing where you think Fort Collins should be. Maybe you're reflective of where it could be. Maybe you're forward thinking about where it could be. But it's still Fort Collins, and they're all great ideas. And I'm not going to have those answers. I couldn't possibly have those answers as one person. I would never want one person.
Thank you, Scott. Tricia?
Yeah, I would really say what we're hearing from our community is affordable housing is the crisis that we are faced with right now. And that ties into everything else. That ties into transportation and people needing to travel from Greeley to work here in Fort Collins because they can't afford to live here. It impacts our sales tax revenue. It impacts our neighborhood schools. We are probably going to see schools close because young families can't afford to live in our city. So I would really like to see us be doing more on this front. We should be allowing more housing diversity in our community. Portland, for instance, has made a lot of progress with their missing middle housing by allowing for cottage clusters as infill development. I'd love to see us allow for ADUs and infill development, have a pre-approved library, and continuing to streamline our development process to make it easier to get the housing that we need in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston.
I think over the next 2 or 3 years, our budget's going to be our biggest challenge we face. I agree with Tricia that affordable housing and housing in general, housing capacity is the long term and need of many of our residents, but everything stems from our ability to actually maintain a balanced budget and make sure that we can grow responsibly. We have to tackle on finding ways to going back to housing, to have people be able to live in Fort Collins so we can retain more of their sales tax revenue and their income tax revenue here in Fort Collins and not export it to one of our neighboring communities. We also need to look at our budget and see what we can cut. This year we're having to reduce our budget due to revenue shortfalls, and I foresee that happening in the next 2 to 3 years. So all of our priorities will be set based on what we can afford to do. And so we need to get our budget in order before we tackle any other priorities, so we know exactly what we can spend and what we can manage in order to facilitate the growth in a successful economy.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with everything that's been said so far. I think it's a combination that Fort Collins is really going to have an identity crisis about what do we want to be because of affordability. So it is affordable housing, but it is affordability in general, and it is too expensive for people to be able to remain here, move here, or raise their families here, or even as a child, as someone who grew up here, to stay here. And so I think we're really going to have to address the housing affordability, but it's also too expensive to now run and open a small business. And it's getting too expensive for people to stay here. And so we really need to think about what kind of community do we want to be. And the community that I want to see is one that people can stay here, people can choose to move here, and that we are welcoming and inclusive, and that we want diversity and we want folks of all ages to be here and all abilities. And so I think we're really going to have to address that, and that's going to be largely impacted by our budget as well and what we can do as a city. But that's what I want to see in our future, is really addressing this need and making sure that people who want to live here can stay here.
Thank you, Emily. Adam Hirschhorn.
We've got to stop robbing workers. Let's get real. When I was born, a house costs about $70,000, a very comfortable pad. And now that same price is still one gold brick, but that gold brick is $2.2 million. We've got to stop robbing workers. We're going to unionize Connection Workers Coalition. We're going to allow them to further unionize the municipality. We are going to go deep in ADUs because infill will save our bacon, not just pollution, not just climate, not just money put into your gas tank, but it's going to keep us close and connected. And then I'm going to build the Jacob Castillo Resilience and Sustainability Campus to show how far we can take it off fossil fuels.
Thank you. Shirley?
Yes, thank you for the question. I actually think there's 3 urgent challenges, and that would be housing, the budget, but also water. Just really quickly on housing, I pretty much agree with a lot of things that have already been said, but we just have to make sure we're not making it harder for people to own houses here. Through our processes, and we need a flexible land use code. As far as the budget concerns, yes, we're going to have to evaluate and make cuts, but we're also going to have to make sure that we're preserving core city services. And then on the water front, I don't know if you're aware, but we have several water districts in our city that provides water. And at some point, all 3 are going to have to come to the table and have better collaboration if we are going to be able to store and conserve and have water for our community.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to question number 2, and this time, Shirley, we'll start with you. And this is a question that comes from an audience, someone in our audience. What experiences in your background help you to be aware of and sensitive to the needs of residents who are homeless, have a disability, have experienced a financial disaster, or need the support of welfare?
So a couple of things about that. When I was on council, my experience of holding listening sessions every once helped me be aware of the needs in the community. And about the unhoused population, I just want to share a really quick story of a friend of ours that who was a pastor, and then he started drinking. He was removed because he was just not functioning. And come to find out, he had been a Navy SEAL, and he had a lot of brain damage. So he is never going to be able to function in society without some kind of services. So I have a lot of stories like that. So I think that answers your question. What experiences I have, and I've also done I did walk-alongs with Outreach Fort Collins and with the mental health team. So I'm well aware of the issues in our community in regards to our unhoused population.
Thank you. Adam, no, I'm on the wrong one. Adam Hirschhorn. There we go.
Maybe surprising or not, but I've been homeless before. I currently live in Red Tail Ponds, PSH. It's not a thing I'm campaigning on. We could end homelessness. We could end it easy. Fort Collins has the gross domestic product of North Korea, which ably houses over 10 million people. A decent standard of living. It's a dream, right? It's actually only 30% of the world's productive capacity. We're adding another $1 billion of productive capacity with the new USDA facility. We have the wherewithal to end homelessness. I have a plan to end homelessness. Let's just do it.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, can you repeat the question, Jory?
I can. What experiences in your background help you to be aware of and sensitive to the needs of residents who are homeless, have a disability, have experienced a financial disaster, or need the support of welfare?
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So as I said, I grew up in Fort Collins, and my family grew up pretty low income in Fort Collins and also experienced times of houselessness. And so those are a lot of experiences that I draw on, just having that experience as a kid growing up here. And then from that, really dedicated my career to giving back and serving my community. So I've worked in public service. I used to run senior meal programs for seniors that were homebound. I've also worked with mobile home park communities and really worked with them on how do you advocate for a better quality of life and really address some of the root causes of homelessness. And now I work with local governments across the state on planning for and building affordable housing. So my personal experience and my career experience is really focused on exactly what that question addresses. So thank you.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston.
Thank you for the question. So in my current capacity, I work with a lot of nonprofits that work with a lot of the unhoused community and homeless community, and working on finding solutions to the root cause of their challenges and what has caused them to be in the challenged position they are. Starts with finding out ways that we can better help them navigate the system that we currently have. We have a lot of great resources and nonprofits throughout the community, but there are systematic gaps throughout the whole timeline of trying to go from being unhoused to finding stable housing and stable spots in their lives. So I think better identifying the root causes that for our chronic homeless and also our one-time event homeless or unhoused individuals is a good starting point. Working with the HOPE team with Fort Collins Police to better enhance our relationship with our unhoused population so they are more trusting with us, and then possibly looking at doing nonprofit navigators to help those that are unhoused work through the different systems and different processes and different programs in order to make sure that they have a holistic approach to recovery and finding stability within their lives.
Thank you. Tricia?
Yeah, thank you. I personally don't have a lot of experience. I grew up in the military. We didn't have a lot of money. From the age of 12, I was responsible for taking care of all my own needs and working as many jobs as I could. but we were always fortunate to have housing. But I do listen to community members and understand and hear their struggles. And I think we're really at a difficult moment in time. We just had a fire in our rescue mission, and that was 152 beds that will not be replaced this winter. We only have 70 emergency beds. Luckily, we had celebrated the groundbreaking, our new homeless shelter that'll be 250 beds. It'll be trauma informed design. And as we just heard last week at the groundbreaking, this will be a national model. It's a great way forward, but we have to be very cognizant of the needs of many people this winter. It's going to be a struggle. Thanks.
Thank you. Scott.
Thank you. Again, 60 seconds. I'll do my best. Thinking about it, I've also had time to think while everyone else is giving their answers, and many of them have not had that amazing opportunity. Again, what I see as a major flaw in how this town chooses its candidates. This question is very unfair because I'm the last one to speak it, and I've listened to everything they've said. If I was a teacher, I wouldn't allow this. It doesn't make sense. That being said, I'm a teacher in a public school. Everything that has been listed in that question, the public schools deal with. And they deal with it with children. And it's honest and it's brutal. And I have that experience. 26 years in your local school district. And things have changed. And before that, I was a student in the Poudre School District. Poudre School District has been a big part of my life for about 40 years. I'm only 48.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll move on to our next question. And Adam Eggleston, you're up first on this one. So this is about housing. What specific changes would you support to promote affordable housing? How would you engage with the community around those proposals?
Thank you for the question. Housing's been kind of in my wheelhouse for about 15 years, 14 years. Part of it is things that we can change as a city and things that we can't change. We can't change commodity prices and labor costs, but what we can do is address like capital impact fees to an inversion, switch them so it's more cost effective and incentivizing building small, more naturally affordable units than encouraging larger homes. We can also look at possibly tiered water taps, which is something we can control within the city of Fort Collins to, again, encourage more naturally affordable units. And I think the conversation with the community is to be earnest and honest. It seems like everyone wants housing and affordable housing, both subsidized and naturally occurring, unless it's in the backyard. So having direct and honest conversations that if they want their kids to be able to live in Fort Collins, we have to build. And it's not about people moving here. It's about us growing here and allowing generations to continue to live in Fort Collins.
Thank you, Adam. And we will move to Emily.
Sure. So because of the story I shared about my childhood, housing is deeply personal for me and why I've been one of the reasons why I've been a big advocate for housing while serving on city council. And there's no silver bullet to how to address this issue. And many of the things, as Adam discussed, we can't control, but there are things that we can control through the city. And part of that is how long it takes to build a home and what is the city's role in that. So we really need to work on our development review system and making sure that projects that fit within what we want to see in Fort Collins are moving quickly through the process, because right now it just takes too long to get from an idea to a house where a family can live. I think we also need to really discuss about having a dedicated housing fund. Right now, to meet our goal of 10% deed restricted, that's about a $40 million deficit a year. And if Fort Collins is really dedicated to addressing housing, we really need dedicated funding. And then with over 40% of Fort Collins being renters, we really need to make sure that our rental stock is habitable and that we're holding landlords accountable and making sure that those residents also have equal access to healthy, stable homes.
Thank you. Adam Hirschhorn.
Well, I've answered this question in quite a bit of detail, so I'm just going to riff because, I get really worried when I hear what we can't change. I think that's ridiculous. I think business as usual is what's killing us, and MIT would agree. When I went in front of the building code board, the commission, and I asked them one simple question. Are there any new modes of construction that you're excited about? Within a couple of weeks, we were moving forward to getting Habitat for Humanity to 3D print buildings in our community. It's not that hard to change things. It's just the resistance to change. So we're going to change some things around. Subtractive construction, where you have a dividend in the earth that you extract from the earth, that's another.
Thank you. Shirley?
Yes, has been stated, we cannot solve this problem entirely because our economy is based on the housing market. Our housing is used as investments, and our property tax is tied to our housing. But the city can do a few things. As has already been stated, our development review process needs to be reevaluated. We need to make sure we have a flexible land use code. And I would like to see us find pathways to ownership for young people. Also, on the engaged part, I think that was part of the question. When I was on council, I became kind of the mediator between the YIMBYs and the NIMBYs, if you like labels. So I built a lot of relationships. And so I think that I can advocate with both groups that we need sensible, sustainable growth in our city.
Thank you. Scott?
Hello. 60 seconds to solve affordable housing. Again, I spend more time on my YouTube videos, and those are about my Halloween decorations. Solving this requires critical thinking skills of listening to this community, understanding the problem. Maybe, again, if I could solve affordable housing in a 60-second soundbite, I wouldn't be running for mayor of this town on a budget of nothing. This is a very difficult global problem. It's not even isolated with us. And what I could do in terms of right now, no, I'm not an expert on these, but we have experts here. Sometimes they look at it here, sometimes they look at it in different parts of the country, but they live here. And we are going to have to do something, obviously, but it's the future, it's existential.
Thank you. Tricia?
Thank you. As we all know, we can't spend our way out of this crisis. So we have to look for the wins where we can do more with less. So I think where we can really move affordable housing forward is by looking at the development process and really streamlining that. The National Zoning Atlas just looked at Colorado and found that out of the 7 largest cities, Fort Collins was the only one that didn't allow multi-unit buildings with over 4 units by right to build anywhere in the city. So we really need to look at our zoning and allow for more flexibility there. I'd also like us to focus more on infill development and how we can make that easier for developers by allowing for smaller lots and different housing products. That helps with our climate issues. You know, we really want to see a 15-minute city move forward where everyone can have their needs met within a short walk or bike ride from their houses, and infill development that's closer and denser helps to meet those needs.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll move on to question number 4. And Scott, you will be up first this time. And this is another question submitted from the audience. Budget. How do you plan to address the current budget shortfall of $11 million?
Go. I'm sure that city staff will be the first place that I look to. I did a lesson in high school as a teacher of economics about this exact issue. And I had the budget manager for the city, Lawrence Pollack. I also had an assistant city manager come in and talk as guest speakers about how this city does that exact thing. And they explained it and told us how difficult it is to end a city service, not just in the terms of the the service that is provided, but also the people that provide that service, the FTE, if you will, that's backing that, and how does that affect the character of the town? That is the approach that I would take to cuts, rather than exactly what I should cut, but then how does the cuts reemerge as Fort Collins and our identity if we give something?
Thank you. Tricia?
Yeah, at our last work session, we looked at cutting 6.2% of our budget. We've been very fortunate in Fort Collins that we usually are growing our budget rather than shrinking it. And I think in some ways this presents an opportunity to really look at our budget and where there are spendings that we don't really need, and really right-sizing services. Personnel is not where we cut. We're trying to preserve all of the jobs, and I'm wholeheartedly on board with that. And we also need to look at programs that really help our community, especially in this moment in time. So like our legal defense fund and our eviction prevention fund, we need to keep those intact. But I think we can really look to technology to help us improve some systems, and just we have to be scrappy in this moment and figure out a good way forward that preserves the things that our community loves about this city.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston?
Thank you for the question. So I think we need to look kind of at the first out is look at American Rescue Plan money, which was short-term funding source, and that has sunset. So those programs and departments and policies that may have been started funding long-term sources where short-term money needs to be reevaluated if they're actually returning a community benefit and they're meeting their intended goals, and then look to cut, restrict, or redirect some of those funds or those programs if we don't have funding for them anymore, because we can't keep pulling from the general fund. I also think our 2-year budgets cycle is becoming quite onerous on our staff. I think by re-looking on how we approach our 2-year budget, we can save a significant amount of man hours, which is save the city money. And we also have to look at our economic dollars to bring in additional new revenue sources into industries and businesses to make it so we are bringing in increased revenue, not just reducing the budget. So it's kind of both heads.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think this is the 5th budget I've been through at the city while serving on city council. And with revenues down and expenses up, we are really looking at how do we trim the budget. And so, I think there's going to be a conversation that we're going to need to have as a city when it comes to expenses is what is the quality and level of service that we want to provide. We've been, as Tricia said, we've been very fortunate to have a increasing budget. And now we're going to really have to decide about where we want to spend that money. And also, I think we really need to start looking more at what is the outcome and the impact of the programming that we are providing to the community, and really look at what are those dollars getting us, and then starting to make decisions in that way. I think on the other side of revenues, our sales tax is very down. And I think that does go back to the issue of affordability, and people just don't have the expendable income that they used to. And we're going to have to look at how do we have a budget based on something other than just relying on sales tax when people are really limited in their funds. And so we're going to have to address both sides of this issue.
Thank you. Adam Hirschhorn?
I considered both the question and the answer is offensive. I think it's stupid. $27 billion, that's our gross domestic product. 11 million isn't even accurate anymore. We've got money we've found that amounts to almost precisely half of that, $5.5 million. And the council didn't even advise you on it because the council loves the excuse not to do things. What we're going to have to do is go after the big fish. We can't keep squeezing the small guy. That's what austerity is all about. It never works. Malay needs a bailout in Argentina. It never works. We have to develop. I've proposed how to develop. Now, if we're going to just keep allowing the corporations to cannibalize the talent from our university without paying their fair share, and if we're just going to keep allowing all of that, we'll have to
Thank you. Shirley?
Thank you. Several things we need to do about the budget. First of all, we have to have a thorough evaluation where we're spending our money and make sure it's going in a way that reflects our values. We also, when we make cuts, need to make sure that we are retaining our core services at a level that the city needs. Also, we need to put metrics around every program that we create and every dollar that we spend so we know exactly where it's going and we can evaluate the effectiveness of it. And the last thing is we have to take care of our businesses because obviously we are kind of in this crunch because we're losing our sales tax revenue. So we need to create a business-friendly environment. We need to quit making it so hard for businesses to operate here. And so that's just where I would start with the budget.
Thank you. That is a nice segue into our fifth question. And Adam Hirschhorn, you'll be first up for this one. This is based on economic growth. What strategies can the city implement to encourage and support small businesses?
Well, we have to mob them up. They'll never compete against the big conglomerates unless they can rely on one another. That's just good common sense. We've heard it before from the Futures Committee guests. Once we mob up our smaller businesses so they don't get eaten by the big fish, obviously they're going to need some showcase places like the Jacob Castillo Sustainability and Resilience Campus, other places around town too. The plan is to mob up, branch out, and dig in. And I do mean dig in because we're not going to fare well if we don't have shelter against an atmosphere that wants to kill us. That's the big picture. We're losing agricultural product. We're losing forests. We're losing the wonders of the natural world.
Thank you. Shirley?
Sorry, wasn't expecting to go next.
Surprise.
So first we need, we need to create a business-friendly environment. I talked about that a little bit. And we also need to make sure our processes and our regulations are not overburdening our local small businesses. We also need to have dedicated liaisons between businesses and the city. When I was serving on council, I ended up being the liaison between several businesses and the problems they were having at the cities. And I think they did end up hiring one person in the economic office who is awesome. But I think we need more. Businesses need to know that they can go to a specific person in the city and say, I'm having this issue. Can you help me? And then the last thing we need to do is we need to turn to our economic health office and we need to have an economic plan that not only helps our businesses that we have now, but helps us bring in businesses that are suited to Fort Collins.
Thank you. Scott?
Thank you. I just want to have one more clarification. These questions are amazing. Great questions. I absolutely want to have discussion after discussion with these questions. Unfortunately, we're trapped to 60 seconds. Listen to the business owners. My mom owned a store on Linden Street, 222 Linden Street, back in the late 80s, early 90s. They ripped up the sidewalk to make it more beautiful, and in the time that it took to make it beautiful, we lost our business. I did right before I came here. I went to Elliot's Martini Bar where I worked for 13 years, and I asked the manager, what do you think about paid parking downtown? And she said no. And everyone all the staff members, no, 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 no. And I'm listening to that. And I know that that's one of the, but they're just one side, and there's others. So again, it's most likely listen.
Thank you. Tricia?
Yeah, I am a former business owner, so I understand a lot of what business owners are facing in the city. I think we need to continue to create opportunities and really look at examining the business processes with the city. So we should be seen as a partner in developing businesses rather than an adversary, which a lot of the time I think businesses see us as that. I'd like to see us use underutilized city properties to help businesses get ahead, perhaps with like a food business incubator accelerator, so that we can see more businesses like the Bread Chick or Taco Step that started out in a very small way as either at the farmers market, as a food truck, and see them expand and grow. It would be great to see other businesses have those same opportunities. And then I also think we need to partner with the school district, CSU, to create innovative entrepreneurial opportunities and to also create the workforce development that we need for jobs.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston.
So as I just recently closed my coffee business on June 30th, so I was a small business owner for the last 5 years and been an entrepreneur part of my life. And so the challenges are there's a lot of redundancies built into our permitting system to start and operate a business, and it makes it, the downtime is really challenging. So I think the city can really look to identify ways to accelerate permitting and processes for small businesses. Another thing the city can do is work with the county appraiser's office to find ways to stabilize property value increases or tax increases to provide some stability for small business owners that can't afford to own their business. That and the rapid increase in property values over the last 10 years has made owning a small business nearly impossible. And I also agree with Scotty and talking to a lot of folks downtown. Going in, putting in paid parking right after a year-long water main project in down College will do nothing but hurt small businesses.
Thank you. Emily.
Yeah, it's a great question. To open a business in Fort Collins, especially a small business, it is too complicated, it's too expensive, and it is too difficult. I met with two small business owners this morning that are trying to move their location so that they can move into a space that's better suited for them. They've been open for 7 years, and they cannot navigate the city process on their own and have to hire outside help. And the cost is so prohibitive that they may not be able to realize their dreams. This shouldn't be the role of the city. The city should be a partner in these things, and we should be able to have a system that anyone can go in and navigate and can afford and open the business that they desire. On the other hand, we are seeing small businesses leave Fort Collins and small businesses not open here, and chain businesses are really the ones that can navigate and afford that process. And that's not what I want to see in Fort Collins. I want to see businesses that really represent us and that represent our community. And we also really need to attract businesses that are here to create job opportunities and pay a livable wage, because a lot of residents are really having a hard time finding those opportunities.
Thank you. And we'll move on to question number 6. And Emily, you'll be on first for this one. This is taking kind of a little different track. It's on leadership. How does the position of mayor differ from that of council member? How would you allocate time and resources between promoting the city elsewhere versus being here to manage local issues?
Oh, that's a great question. So, when it comes to voting, a mayor is just one of 7 and they have an equal vote. But mayor really is the representative of our city, and they are there to show up and represent Fort Collins. And I think that is why mayor is such an important role. And having been filled in that role sometimes, I understand that the mayor's words carry more weight in some instances. And so it's really important that we elect somebody that represents Fort Collins. And luckily for Fort Collins, we have 7 candidates that want to fill that role. For me, I'm from Fort Collins. I've been dedicated to Fort Collins. I've had my career here. I was raised here. And so my time would be really focused on Fort Collins. We are going into a time where there are going to be increasing challenges, as all of your wonderful questions tonight have addressed. And we really need a mayor that is focused on addressing the most pressing needs and opportunities for Fort Collins.
Thank you. And we're going to go the other way. Adam Eggleston.
So, as mayor, you're just one of 7 voices on the diocese, but I think the mayor can role to be a shield and help give blanket endorsement and protection to the staff so they can do their courageous things and develop policies and procedures and new directions that are sometimes nuanced and challenging to understand. And so the mayor can really be that voice and a shield for the staff to move forward. I think also the mayor, especially with times that we're facing uncertainty, the mayor needs to focus more locally than regionally or nationally. So going to conferences or going to DC or communicating with outside regions needs to be a secondary priority to making sure that whatever the next mayor does focus mostly here locally rather than any influence or persuasion from any regional, state, or national bodies or entities. So I think it needs to focus locally.
Thank you. Tricia?
Thank you. I think I would really be looking, if I were to win this election, at focusing both on the local and beyond the local, because Fort Collins' voice and our values need to be part of the broader conversation. So I agree that I would get out, I would be talking to constituents and really hearing from people as to what they want to see their city do. But on the same hand, like my work with Colorado Communities for Climate Action, I know that Fort Collins, we get our values across better when we work together and collaborate with partners across the region and across the state. I'm also seeing that with Front Range Passenger Rail. We are working to bring rail to our city by the end of this decade. And it is by working with these partners that we can bring these values of our city, reliable alternative transportation and climate action. And as a mayor, I think you have an even stronger voice to help get those policies across that you want to see for our community.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, the office of mayor has always been intriguing to me. It's very rare in democracies where you're represented twice on the same governing body. It's usually separated, bicameral legislations and things like that. It's very rare that we have this. And 20 years ago, when I was working with my students and learning about direct democracy versus representative democracy, we talked about this unique situation of the mayor and how the mayor is able to be a true voice. Because if you feel that you want to go the more traditional route of representation, you have a council member. But the mayor of this town and the way that our city code has had it in the past is much more of a representation of the people. And so my whole campaign has always been, since for the past 20 years, give the power back to the people and let them guide the mayor rather than be guiding as the mayor.
Thank you. Shirley?
Yes, I tell people that my time on council was the best job I ever had. And so I think I know I'll bring that same mindset. And while I was on council, I did all the homework. I held listening sessions. I went out in the community and I really listened and I talked to people to hear what they were saying. And I term that as servant leadership. And so I think that is what a mayor needs to be. They need to be a servant and a leader. And as a mom of 4 and a former teacher, former school administrator, I had a lot of experience with collaboration, cooperation, and even negotiation. And so that is the role of the mayor, too, to bring people together in those 3 areas. And I think, Tricia's right. We need to do a really good job here. But we also need to look outside ourselves to be a leader in northern Colorado, because Fort Collins is the larger city in northern Colorado, and we need to be a leader in that.
Thank you. Adam Hirschhorn?
I think I'll be a great leader for this city, mostly because of the autism. I'm the first Tylenol American ever running for the mayor's office. But, it helps you when someone can actually connect the dots. It also helps you if I carry a big girthy rod of cancellation that reaches all the way to the Senate Oversight Committee. It's helpful if we have enemies to our city, and that can happen. And the best thing about being your leader is being able to recruit talent. It's the talent that brings the business here. If we've got to save Florida, I picked Doshi. I think Doshi would be a good person to say from Florida. Think about the other states around the country. Who do you want coming to Fort Collins? People are going to come to Fort Collins.
Thank you. All right. Well, we're going to go on to question number 7. And Tricia, we're coming back to you again on this round for the first answer. And we're going to get specific this time. This is a question on noise ordinances. How can the city meaningfully enforce noise ordinances on the streets and with CSU events such as football games when CSU replies that it is not subject to these ordinances?
Yeah, I think we've all noticed an increase in noise around our city. I know I live near a park where a lot of people like to gather and rev their motorcycles, shoot off noise guns or whatever they're called, ride around without mufflers, and it's really become something that's difficult for our community to deal with. I was very happy that our police came to us with a change in our noise ordinance, so it would be more easy to ticket those that have these modified mufflers or the loud motorcycles, and I'd like to continue to see them use that option. We're also looking at what noise looks like in the city and what is acceptable for our residents. And I think we're waiting to hear back on that study, but people want to have entertainment, but they also want to have peace. We want to continue to be a peaceful city.
Thank you. Scott?
Can you repeat that question for
I
me?
can. How can the city meaningfully enforce noise ordinances on the streets and with CSU events, such as football games, when CSU replies that it is not subject to these ordinances?
Okay, I'm listening to that question. I'm trying to answer that question. I'm not trying to do anything else. How would we enforce city ordinances on the street? Right now, you enforce them. It's on the ordinance. If you're asking a question about how do we change those things, I would love to have a conversation about that. But this is really a question for city staff on how they enforce now, whether it's the police department or our code enforcement people. As mayor, I would love to point whoever wrote this question in the direction of someone that would actually answer it with an answer that they could take and use. That's not really where the mayor's expertise, in my perspective, is, but I do know how to network really well, and I do know how to figure out who you should talk to in a very expedited way, and then CC the mayor, and you'll probably get a response.
Thank you. Shirley?
I actually have personal experience with this. We had a nice young man come to my house the other day and tell us we were being too loud. So anyway, I think just off the top of my head, we apparently need to have objective standards. It doesn't sound like there's objective standards. And then we need to empower our police services to enforce those standards. And then it obviously sounds like we need to build a better relationship with CSU.
Thank you. Adam Hirschhorn?
The students are right. They get together on the weekends and they have a blast. So what? I have tinnitus. I'm autistic. Noise bugs the heck out of me, and I'm glad I live at Red Tail Ponds. But when I'm out in the city, I know there goes those mufflers again, and we definitely have a way to crack down on it if we wanted to. We have a monitoring system that can detect gunshots. We can just adapt that.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, I was happy to work with a group of residents to bring forward updates to the noise ordinance, specifically around mufflers. And then that was ultimately supported by council. So we did update those ordinances only a few months ago. And so we're still seeing that being implemented in police starting to enforce that. And so hopefully we will see updates from that. And then the second is we are reevaluating our downtown noise with more infill development and some mix of uses to really navigate what does that look like. And that's just part of a growing city. And so I would say that council is working on addressing this, but we do have some work to do. And we're doing the studies on that and then best how to approach this. And hopefully that new ordinance will provide some relief to residents, because we can all remember sitting at the corner of College and Mountain and a big muffler goes by and how disruptive that is. And then I will say that this is the first year that CSU can have those large scale events. And so there is some relationship building that needs to happen with CSU on the impact that's having to the surrounding community and how far that noise pollution is going out across the city.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston.
So I used to be one of those kids that drove around with a loud muffler, so I apologize. But with that said, now I'm older and I realize it's becoming a nuisance through our community. So I'm encouraged with the new policy, and I think with proactive policing and community engagement through our policing for Collins PD and Limerick County Sheriffs, is we can actually build a better relationship with those individuals that are revving their engines and maybe behaving badly, and then with the new ordinance, maybe pair it with a tiered or an escalating fee structure. So we understand that kids would be kids or people would be kids, and they'll have a loud party once, or they'll have a loud muffler. But with communication and better enforcement, I think we can actually curtail that. And we'll see how the evolution of CSU Stadium with the surrounding neighborhoods do. It seems like there's always a push-pull play with CSU, and we'll figure out the best way to move forward.
Thank you. Tricia. Oh, she's already gone. Okay, I've turned the page. Sorry about that. All right, this is question number 8, and Scott, it's going to come to you first. We're going to head on the bus with transport. When was the last time you rode a transport bus? What were your impressions? What needs to be done to ensure it is a reliable mode of transit for daily commutes?
I was on the transportation board for 4 years back in the early 2000s, and we worked a lot on transport and the building of the MAX line and things like that. We were given free passes for the transport, and I think that was really the last time that I used it. No, I used it when my 22-year-old, who's now 22, my kid was going to Front Range. And I think I helped them map out their route from our house to Front Range, and they only had to walk 1.5 miles to get to the bus stop. 1.5 miles. And I live in Quail Hollow. I live right at Drake and Overland, and it was 1.5 miles. We've got some major issues with our bus routes. I'm sorry. I would like to apologize to everyone who recognizes the American with Disabilities Act and how we have not updated our bus stops. And we really don't run this bus system as well as the people deserve it.
Thank you. Tricia?
Yeah, the last time that I rode the bus was last year going to a CSU football game. It was a great experience. It was fun to see all the excitement of everybody who was utilizing the bus. I don't know that we see that same excitement in the rest of our system. It's not serving some of our areas incredibly well right now. So we are undergoing a transit optimization study and looking at how we can incorporate microtransit into the system as well, so that underserved areas or areas that are really long and difficult to tie into the rest of the system are better served. We do have budget constraints, and there is some question of how much funding will be coming down from the federal government for our transit system. So we really need to look at the routes that are most needed and most used and increase the frequency on those routes so that we make it a workable system for the most people possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston.
So I think our budget for the transportation department needs to be looked at. I think it's close to $40 million. I would like to see us to look at having better point-to-point coverage with smaller, more nimble buses that don't tear up the roads as much. I know there's a push to go electrification of the fleet, but I would put that on pause until we can get our ridership up. I think the 2023 numbers, and I may be mistaken, but our average ridership is about $16 a rider, where the national average is about $11. So our budget based on our ridership is not there. Last time I looked at riding, I did a workshop with the leadership for Collins, and I live by Fort Collins High School, and to go to King Soopers using the bus transit system, it would have taken me 3.5 hours. I don't walk fast, and I could have walked to King Soopers and back in about an hour. So it just is currently it's not working, especially for those that do have mobile challenges or our senior population. So we need to get better point-to-point transit system, not the big buses.
Thank you. Emily.
Yeah, I rode the bus about 2 weeks ago. I think, since we went fare free during the pandemic, it's such a seamless process now. You just hop on and you don't have to deal with paying or an app or anything. And so I think part of that is making sure that we keep our buses fare free. And then, the other part is it's been really difficult for the city to hire drivers. And so we really need to look at, should we start using smaller buses so that some of those license requirements go away? So like a CDL license that we to really make sure that we can hire enough bus drivers. And then the other thing is that we really need to focus with the dollars that we have for our transit system to really focus those dollars on serving the people who need to use the bus and that use the bus and rely on the bus, and making sure that they have access to a really good and robust system. And, we are at a place where we may lose money for our transit system. And so it's going to be really important to make sure that those who rely on it have access to a reliable bus.
Thank you. Adam Hirschhorn.
I rode transport 6 times today. One driver didn't even pick me up. There were gestures, but I'm over it. I love transport. Transport's the only way to get around for me. And I think that if we're strongly considering branching out to other communities, we might consider other communities that are not on the I-25 corridor. We might consider communities like Sterling, for example, closer to our agricultural interests. I think that transport's something that I'm going to always support and love and make sure it's funded.
Thank you. Shirley.
I think I rode the bus 2 or 3 years ago. I'm not sure. It was not a good experience because I had to stand. We were downtown. I had to stand in the cold for, I think, 30 minutes. And if y'all know me, I don't like being cold, waiting for the bus to come by. And so I think that we need to, right now, with the funding in question, we need to make sure that we're looking at where the public transportation is needed the most and making sure that it's efficient, it's reliable, and easy to use. And then I had a neighborhood close to me that were so annoyed that they couldn't get a bus stop because the bus came right by the neighborhood going back to the city facilities. So places like that, we need microtransit. By microtransit, I mean vans or smaller buses to fill in the gaps.
Thank you. All right. Well, we'll move on to question number 9. And Shirley, you're first up for this one. Would you support a significant increase in charges for water use in excess of 10,000 gallons a month to encourage conservation?
This is an area, water is very complicated. And, I think as Scotty has said tonight, it's hard to talk about complex problems in 60 seconds. But before we talk about increases, we are going to have, and this is not a popular answer, I understand that, we are going to have to talk about water districts coordinating and providing better services for conservation and the building out of any infrastructure that's needed. So I think before we can even talk about raising the water fee, we need to go back to our water districts and say, how can we be more efficient and more effective?
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, again, another very specific question for mayoral candidates. We have a great city staff that does work a lot with this. And of course, as a mayor, you want to be able to speak to water, particularly in northern Colorado. As an educator for so long, I've always taught that if you want to understand water law, you look at two states. You look at California and you look at Colorado. Understanding how water storage works in this part of the country and how far back these laws go and these rights of the canals versus the water districts versus the reservoirs versus every drop of water in the Poudre River is owned. That's weird, but you got to think of it that way. And those things, again, very complicated. I'd love to have a conversation, but it'd be more specific knowing your context to that question.
Thank you. Adam Hirschhorn.
Water is life. Water is also the future of power, especially here in Fort Collins when we get off of fossil fuels. And then instead of having a new project every 30 years, we'll be one and done for the next 1,000 years. I really believe in doing things once completely, never have to do it again. Bat away our problems like a cat bats away a Roomba. But as far as water goes, we could make it purple rain. If people aren't too touchy about 1940s level geoengineering, we could make it rain. We can import water. We don't have to dry up and blow away. But when we look out on the Eastern Plains, where our agricultural interests are, they've got problems.
Thank you. Emily.
Yeah, I think like others have said, it's a very nuanced question. I would say that, currently at the city, we do have tiered water rates. So we are already implementing a tiered water rate system when you go over a certain amount for your allotment. And there are many things that go into a decision like this. For example, if you have a large family living somewhere and they have a higher water use because of the number of people there, what does that do to their utility bill? We're already seeing utility bills increase 9% year over year, and we really have to think about affordability and the impact that has on folks. And if I'm assuming the question is coming from a place of being concerned about conserving water, and if that's true, while we should all do our part to conserve water, we are not going to be able to conserve our way out of a water issue. And that is mainly because residential use of water in the state of Colorado is a very small percentage of our overall use, which actually goes to agricultural uses. And so if we want to talk about water conservation in Colorado, we really also need to talk about both sides of those uses.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston.
Thank you. So I'm not a huge fan of just blanket stick kind of approach if they're using too much water. I'd rather see what the nuanced approach or why their individuals or the households are using that much water. Conservation, I think we do need to conserve more water. As a planning commissioner, I was one of the votes to vote yes on the Halligan Reservoir dam, new dam project. So with water storage is important. I also would like to see the city engage into a similar program like that we do with the EPIC Home Loan Program for energy efficiency to encourage homeowners to do xeriscaping or to reduce their use of heavy vegetation or water use, to offer low interest loans for individuals that would like to see a reduction of the water thing. So I think if we cover it with incentives and low interest loans to find ways to reduce water usage and conserve water, as well as look at additional water stores such as NISP, we can actually achieve a good balance.
Thank you. Tricia.
Yeah, we recently talked as a council about our water conservation goals, and that's decreasing water use year over year by 4%. And I really am appreciative of the city looking at this and working towards that. I also think this is another opportunity to work as a region, to work with other communities and water districts to help have a plan in place for the entire region to lower our water use and conserve more water and help to keep water in our basin in northern Colorado. We're seeing other communities buy up our water, and I think that's really important to work regionally as well for there. We also have to be cognizant of our low income residents and how we can keep water rates affordable for them. Last year, we adjusted our tap fees. Historically, they have continued to escalate. Last year, we looked at a different pricing mechanism for water tap fees, so that would be less expensive for our residents, and then looked at a water allocation as well.
Okay, thank you very much, candidates. And we are on to question number 10. And Adam Hirschhorn, you'll start with this one. And we've had a couple of questions come from the audience about coordinating with the county. And this one gets a little specific. It says there are many concerned residents, along with the city of Fort Collins, regarding the proposed concrete batch plant off of Highway 287 North. What are your thoughts about this heavy industry at the gateway to our community?
Well, the Jacob Castillo Resilience and Sustainability Campus addresses this with underground living in the form of industrial operations which don't pollute the atmosphere. You can keep it quarantined. You can keep the dust quarantined underground, just like if you were dumping an ashtray into a garbage, you want to put the garbage can over the ashtray. I think we need to grow. I think we need concrete, but I don't think that we need to breathe it.
Thank you. Shirley?
So actually, I just heard about this today, so I'm not entirely familiar with it. And so just my initial reaction is that's probably not the best place for that, but I'm just going to be really honest with you. I'm just going to have to read about it and go look and see.
All right, thank you. Scott?
I don't know if I can ask for a clarification. Is this in city limits?
I don't know anything about it. It just says.
I'm seeing a few head shakes
I'm
now.
assuming because it says the coordination with the county.
I would love to point you in the direction of LaPorte. I understand how government works, and there are many circles to it. And sometimes people are confused whether it's a city issue, a county issue, a state issue, a federal issue. You know, I understand. I've been teaching civics for a very long time, and being able to help explain, you know, hey, I think this is where maybe you could get the best bang for your buck in terms of an answer. But, you know, as the mayor of Fort Collins, that's kind of out of my, I can give you like Scott's personal opinion, but no, you really need to go through the channels that are built in through the city of LaPorte. I mean, I could do a side answer, but again, I don't know anything about it right now. I don't live in that community. We share northern Colorado. I totally understand that, and I want to show empathy for the people that are, you know, have strong feelings about this. But it's not really a question for the mayoral candidates of Fort Collins.
Thank you. Tricia?
Yeah, thank you. Some neighbors that would be impacted by the batch plant came to me last summer at a listening session and asked me to get involved. A deputy city manager was at the listening session with me, and we were able to talk this through. She came to city council to a meeting, and the city council passed a resolution opposing this batch plant. That resident just re-engaged with me, and I have asked the city where we're at. We are still opposing the batch plant and working with the county. This does not fit with city plans for our GMA and growth management area, and we are hoping to see this stopped. There are really environmental justice issues in this area and the air quality issues. I had been working to try to get a grant that we could go after to help with some of those issues there.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston?
So I don't believe I can answer, as I serve as a Laramie County Planning Commissioner, and I don't know if this come before us or not, so I have to not answer. Sorry.
That's all right. Emily.
I think that's a safe bet. So as Tricia said, I was part of that council decision to oppose the batch plant. I think its location would have a really big impact on the neighbors and that neighborhood around there with the heavy truck traffic, the pollution and the air quality. And this really doesn't fit for Fort Collins once we annex that area and start to grow into our growth management area. And, you know, the city of Fort Collins does have a good working relationship with Limerick County, and the mayor definitely works, and as city council members work with the county commissioners. And so it is important to have a really good relationship and be able to talk about these issues because we do have to work closely, especially on areas that are currently in the county but will be in the city. And so I continue and still do oppose the location of this batch plant and think that there is work to do with the county on relocation.
Thank you, candidates, on that. And we are getting close to time, so I'm going to do this last question as kind of a lightning round. And so let's just do a yes or no or a maybe. I'll let you hedge. And so this is on in the environment. Would you support or oppose a policy ban for the sale of single-use plastic water bottles under 1 gallon, like this one, I'm assuming? Please explain, well, just yes or no. And then if there's time, we can explain. So let's start with you, Tricia.
Maybe.
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 This is successful. Adam?
You've got an entire plastic spoon of microplastics in your brain. Yes, we're going to do that.
Shirley?
Maybe.
Maybe. And Scott?
I'm not going to answer. I mean, we deserve better as a community to talk about these things. Yes or no answers are not it.
Well, hopefully this will spur some conversations. So thank you, candidates, for your thoughtful answers this evening. And now it's time for your concluding remarks. And we'll begin the concluding statements with you, Scott.
Okay. I'm Scotty V. I've lived in this town. It is 90 seconds, right? Did we switch?
No, now it's 60.
Just still, okay, I used up that time too. I come to you as a historian, a community builder, and an educator. I grew up in Fort Collins, but I went away for college. I went to St. Olaf College and I went to Columbia University, and I have an advanced degree in history and the teaching of history. I understand how to think like a historian. Look that up. It's a very specific skill set of contextualizing, looking for people's viewpoints, what's missing. I'm a community builder. I built FOCO MX with a few friends, and for 17 years, that festival has become part of our city's identity. I'm also an educator. 26 years of teaching government here in Fort Collins. Those are the skills that I'm hoping that you recognize. Go to my websites, come talk to me.
Thank you. Shirley?
A question I get a lot is what sets you apart from all the other candidates? And everybody up here has their own unique skill set, and they're all different, and they're all good. My skill set happens to be I'm a very deep thinker. I research to the point of nearly making myself sick. I ask questions to the point of annoying everybody around me. I know how to listen well and build bridges with people. And so that's the skill set that I would bring to the office of mayor. And I think that's very important when you are trying to make a Fort Collins that works for everyone. And so again, I just want to invite you to visit my website at shirleyforfoco.com to learn more about me. Thank you.
Thank you. Adam Hirschhorn?
Next year, ICE has the military budget of the Russian military, or the equivalent budget of the Russian military. I don't know what these other candidates are going to do. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Allahu Akbar. I don't know that guy. Who's Dave? Dave's not here. I'm going to protect Muslims. I'm going to protect Latinos. I'm going to protect trans kids. I'm going to protect this city, no matter who you are. If you stop and think about the implications of climate change, you need somebody who's on the same page as real experts.
Thank you. Emily?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone coming out and watching online. Local government has the biggest impact on your day-to-day life, and so it's really important to be involved in local elections. So thank you for paying attention to our municipal election. I hope that tonight I've demonstrated my expertise and leadership, and I'm excited for the opportunity to step in and be mayor. If you have any questions, of course, you can visit my website, or I'll be here after the forum. And I hope that you rank me as number one for your choice. And if not number one, then number two. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you. Adam Eggleston.
Thank you all for joining us this evening, and I also want to thank all my peers up here. We have a really fun and robust conversations among ourselves, and so I appreciate all the input and information tonight. My name's Adam Eggleston. I'm running hopefully for your number one vote in the ranked choice voting this year. I have a very robust and collective background, from being a business owner to a community advocate, helping serving with those in our community that are in the most needs, and then working through the different ways we can improve our housing stock and mobility. I look forward to a fun last 34 days of the election. And if you have any questions, go to adamegglestonformayor.com or ask me out for a cup of coffee. I drink probably more than I should on coffee, so I'm always open for another cup. Thank you.
Thank you. Tricia?
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum, and thank you to everyone who engaged tonight. It shows how much you care about our community, and it's so appreciated by myself and I'm sure all candidates up here. What sets me apart is that I really try to be as responsive as I can. If you want to meet with me, give me a call. Send me an email. I'm happy to meet. I want to build relationships in the community and out beyond to help advance Fort Collins' interests. I have the experience on leadership on council for the past 4.5 years, and I've built leadership throughout our community, our region, our state, and at the federal level, and I want to bring that to bear as mayor. This is my country music song. If I can't be your number one, then I want to be your number two. So please vote for me. And if you have questions for me, please visit trishaforfoco.com. And thank you again to everyone for your involvement. It's so important to be part of local elections. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank all of you candidates for helping us to understand your concerns and priorities for the city of Fort Collins. To our audience, both here in the City Council chambers and on the other side of the screen, thank you for taking the time to become an informed voter. This fall will be the first time that voters in Fort Collins will be able to use ranked voting in their choice of mayor. For information on ranked voting, including videos on the process and sample ballots, visit vote.larimer.gov. For information on registering to vote or checking which district you live in, visit vote411.org. Now for some important dates. Registered voters, your ballots will be mailed on October 10th. Ballot drop-off boxes will open October 10th and are open for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until 7 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th, which is Election Day. For the locations of these safe and secure boxes that are all over Larimer County, visit vote.larimer.gov. Early in-person voting begins October 27th. Excuse me. I was fine all night. All right, let's try that again. Early in-person voting begins October 27th and goes through 7 p.m. on November 4th. Find locations and hours for in-person voting centers at vote.larimer.gov. Bilingual and other assistance will also be available at the voter service centers. If you're mailing your ballot back, be sure to allow lots of extra time for the post office to deliver the ballot, as the ballot must be physically received by the county clerk by 7 p.m. on November 4th. Postmarks do not count. But of course, if you're waiting in line to vote in person at a voting center at 7 p.m. on November 4th, you will still be allowed to vote. So we are very excited to go into this first election with ranked voting. Being informed voters has never been more important. So thank you, candidates, again for coming and allowing us to get to know you a little better. League members, thank you for organizing this forum, and thank you to each and every person here tonight and everyone watching on the screens for becoming informed voters. Please let your friends know they can watch the recordings of this forum and other forums at the League's website. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Larimer County, I'm Jory Kramer. Let's go vote.